Hey everybody, and welcome to Tone Chugs in Harmony, your weekly rhythm guitar podcast where we talk with exciting guests and through them we learn about their experiences and techniques of all things rhythm guitar. Today we are joined by, I already forgot how to say it and they just told me, Sulevia?
Correct. Yes.
I said it right. Welcome, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm good, I'm excited. We have been back and forth trying to get this episode to happen for a while now. I feel like I say that in every episode with every guest, but you know, as it is with life and musicians, we all have crazy schedules that we try to balance out with each other, and these things take time. But I'm stoked we're doing it. We're finally here, so I'm very excited. So let's start with the first
Mhm.
question I have: is what is Sulevia?
Well, Sulevia is actually a Celtic goddess from ancient times. There's various different gods and goddesses in all sorts of different religions and cultures, but Sulevia was one that resonated with me. It's actually a name that I've had for years now, and when I had the inception that I was going to do a solo project, I knew that that was going to be the name. It was just something unique, and for me, it's kind of pretty sounding, which just resonated with me, but also has like an esoteric kind of vibe. So it passes well as like a metal name, you know what I mean? So
Yeah,
something I always thought was cool.
it absolutely works. Like you said, it's pretty metal, and the best. And having heard your music and seen sort of the aesthetics of the artwork and stuff, it is a very fitting name. So
Cool.
So tell us a bit about your solo music. Well, and a bit about yourself. How long have you been playing, guitar? But you also sing. You do a lot of stuff. I mean, when you say solo, I think you quite literally mean you do it all yourself, right?
Yes, that's true. For the album that I released about 1 year ago, um, everything was totally produced by myself. I recorded it in my bedroom. I like programmed the drums, did all the guitars, did the bass, did the vocals. It was a massive learning experience for me. Um, there's a lot that I didn't know how to do going into it, and kind of just figured out as I went. But it definitely prepared me for the future and stuff that I want to do um, in the future with my music. But about me as like as an artist, as a guitar player, in general, I've been playing for almost 20 years. About around that. I'm 28 now. I started when I was about 9 or 10. Obviously, just like everyone, getting into like the basic rock and metal stuff, Metallica and all the fun, simple stuff. But in high school, I played in a few bands. Just some minor local stuff. We did a few tours, did a few records, recorded. So I have a lot of experience with that. Once COVID kind of happened was when I kind of turned more towards the solo project, just because I feel like everyone's band, everything fell apart for everyone in some sort of way at that time. So I was just me, I didn't have anyone else to rely on. And that's when I started to grind with, doing content, doing solo music, and that's when I started my page and kind of just went from there.
So you did an album, your first solo album that came out last year. You produced it all yourself. You did everything yourself. Tell us a bit more about that album, the styles on it, the playing, the performance, the songwriting within it.
Yeah, for sure. So it's kind of an eclectic mix of different styles, I would say. It's kind of like death metal mixed with thrash metal. There's a little bit of black metal in there, even a little bit of progressive. The album, for anyone interested, is called Riddled Land by Sulevia. You can find it on Spotify, Apple Music, anywhere. Bandcamp is usually the best place to support artists directly, if you don't know. Um, but yeah, it totally a self-produced kind of idea. Like it really started with one song, and then it kind of just went from there. For me, I'd say thrash metal, death metal kind of vibes is my comfort zone. So when I went in to do this project, I wanted to do something that I knew I could like tackle, that I knew I could like crush it. And so um, other than that, I mean, it's pretty open ended. There's even an acoustic track. I have like a synthesizer track. I'm such an eclectic person with my tastes. I try to have like an encompassing vision, but there's all kinds of styles that go into that vision, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that's fantastic. And actually, I'm gonna feel so bad. I forget who I was talking to about it, but someone just recently on the podcast, we talked about just that. And that's what makes, you know, music and as an artist expressing yourself so great is you're pulling from these inspirations. Oh, it was Alicia Cordisco from Judicator. We were talking exactly about this because they pull from a wide variety of influences as well, and they write a lot of different genres. And I was asking her, like, you know, how do you do that and get in that mindset? And it's like you said, like, you pull from these inspirations, but then you're still making it you, right? And you know, I've listened to your album and I hear the elements you're talking about, but there's still a cohesiveness to it. Yeah. It's not like one song's pure black metal, one song's pure thrash metal. It's like all these songs feel like they fit together, but you hear those elements. And that's the cool part about when you're writing the songs is it's a representation of you, and you're like, well, I like black metal, so I want to throw this little black metal thing, but this is how I would this is my interpretation of how I would do it.
And even for me, with one song in particular, it's a more progressive song. It's like 7 minutes long, and it was my first time ever doing anything like that. But I went into it knowing, like, okay, this is going to be a progressive track. This is going to have odd time signatures. It's going to go weird places. And it worked out. I mean, that's half the fun of songwriting, you know, is just trying new things and seeing where it goes.
Yep. I was saying this actually last night on my stream. I was playing my Dire Apparel album. And I was like, man, sometimes I miss the days where I didn't know as much about theory. And what I mean by that is, like, there's things I do on that album that I don't think I would do now because I you know, I was living in the ignorance of I didn't know any better, quotations. Like there's a song where, you know, it's in E minor, right? Because as a guitarist, we typically write to whatever. I guess technically it's in C minor because I'm tuned to C standard. But the verse jumps to the A string, right? So, you know, if we're in standard tuning, it'd go to A minor. So it changes keys. And I did that specifically because I was trying to write a verse like a Symphony X song. And the particular Symphony X song I was taking inspiration from was written in that sort of progression key on the 5th string. So I mimicked it as best, you know, I took the inspiration and tried to do something similar. And I was like, I wonder if I would have done that now, because I'm like, oh, should I change? You know, because I had a while there where unfortunately I got too into the like, oh well, no, because I changed the key, I can't do that, right? Or this wouldn't work. But it's like that's the fun part is breaking the rules, and I had to remind myself of that. But the point is like there's a lot of things I do on that album that I'm like, I did it not because I was like making this decision. I didn't know any better, but I was just going off, this sounds good. And ultimately that should come first, you know.
One of my favorite releases I did was the band I was in high school. Lacerate was the name. We released an album called Eternity of Malice. It was like the first legit thing we'd ever done. We recorded it at a studio in Orlando, Alpaca Ranch Recording. But I didn't know anything about theory, anything about writing, but I go back and listen to it, and it's just the energy and like just being a group of teenagers like writing thrash metal. It was like, it's really fucking good. Like you know, I can cuss, right?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Yeah, it was like this is really fucking good. And even I listened back to it today, and I'm like, damn, like we were really on fire. We didn't know anything. I mean, he didn't even know how to tune his drum kit, and like just all these different things. But it just, that's art, you know. That's the beauty, especially with metal and rock and roll. It's all about the vibes.
Oh yeah, I had a thrash band right out of high school. We never played a show. We were called Treason. Oh. We did a 3-song EP. But to this day, I'll jam some of those riffs because they were just fun, dude. Like, and again, it's like I think, you know, I have the habit, especially these days, of getting in my head too much. You know, I've heard someone say this. I think they quoted Dave Mustaine, but I don't know if it was actually Dave Mustaine who said it. But it's definitely something that's been said of like, you know, you have your whole life to write your debut, but then you got to write the follow-up. And I always joke that I write really good debuts because I feel like my 3 best releases have been like debut albums. And I think the problem with that is like I'm feeling this new inspiration, and that's, you know, so I go in that direction, but I'm like, oh well, this won't work for this project because I have a bad habit of like shoehorning my projects into very niche things. So it's like, oh well, I don't want to write about that now. but I've already established that that's what this project is. So I guess I gotta do another one. Yeah. So,
Like
oops.
what we did in high school is we just like we changed our band name like 3 freaking times, and like
Right.
each time was like a new album or a new sound. And it's like I wouldn't recommend doing that, but it's like a funny way to expand or grow, I guess, as an artist. Like new band, new album, new everything.
Yeah. Great. Okay. So we're gonna jump into today's topic, and today, everybody, we're gonna have a little more loosey goosey today, and we're actually gonna be jumping through the decades and talking about rhythm guitar and bands or artists that we really enjoyed from those decades, and what we feel the inspiration they gave to us and to future decades to follow. So we're not going to go too far back, but I do want us to start in the 60s, as I feel that was a real good turning point when rock truly really started to dominate. I mean, we had the Chuck Berrys and we had the blues, and that was killing, right? We could probably talk a lot about those guys, but in the 60s we started to get bands like the Rolling Stones and the Who, you know. And both those bands were really known, especially back then, for being some wild kids. I think the Who would destroy like the drum kit after every show or something. Was that a thing? Or I know there's like a famous TV show or a famous moment on TV or something where they did that. But so Keith Richards and Pete Townsend. But were there any bands specifically for you from the '60s, from that sort of era, the early rock era, I guess?
For me, it will always be the Beatles, which is, cliche answer, but for me, like truly one of my favorite bands and very, very impactful for me, like how I look at songwriting. I think John Lennon obviously is an extremely underrated player and a very underrated rhythm player. Because so much of the foundation of those riffs or those chords or whatever was just what John was doing. Obviously, he was singing while he was doing it, but the basis of a lot of that music is just those open chord kind of figures, and it's really just John kind of holding it down. So he's always been one of my favorites personally.
Yeah. Also, big Beatles fan, and I took a songwriting class in college, and it was that class that really made me sort of love them. Like I liked them, but that class I was like, whoa, because as the teacher was describing how Beatles would write certain songs, it's like, oh, it seems so simple, but yet not. Also, something that impresses me with the Beatles and another band we'll talk about when we jump to the '70s, but for how much they did and the different genres and everything they jumped through, they were a band for like 10 years, right? Like maybe less. And they did so much in so many genres. And, they might have started off as a British pop, boy band from Britain. I said that already. But their music style changed so much. I mean, I would dare, they went prog rock on us,
Yeah.
like I can't think of the album right now. You might know the one I'm talking about, but it's the one with the really weird name.
Yeah, my favorite Beatles album is always the White Album, which is their longest album and the most eclectic. 'Cause it's like one song will be like rock, the next song is like a piano ballad, the next song is like a show tune. It's like it's crazy, but that's a really good album.
What's funny is what turned me onto the White Album, a little bit random, is the Offspring song that like uses the same melody. Why don't you get a job? Which is like Obladi. I remember like my dad told me that when I was younger. I was like, huh. And then I listened to it. I was like, oh, sure enough. And the album I was thinking of, everybody, was St. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
Oh, the Sgt. Pepper's, gotcha. Okay.
Sgt. Pepper, sorry, yeah. I knew it was like a long title that I couldn't remember, but yeah, that album gets like super proggy.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, with guitar tones, that's a really important one for me too. And speaking of John, he had some of the best guitar tones. As metal players, we want a crunchy, heavy, distortion driven kind of rhythm tone. John really pioneered that. Like songs, Revolution is a good one. I Want You, She's So Heavy is another one, where there's some really, really crunchy, like dirty guitar tones that really like no one was experimenting with at that time. So we have a lot owe to him.
I was going to mention, now this, I've heard people talk about this before, but if we want to get down to like, fast picking, clean, tight performance, other bands we got to give some credit to is like Beach Boys. Like that surf rock kind of playing, a lot of that, like that's, especially with how, talk about tone, that tone, it's clean tone, but it's crisp, it's tight. And they were playing, there was some fast picking, and so I almost think of it, especially in the world of power metal, it's sort of the same idea, just not so, I guess, happy, right? But in power metal, yes, but yeah, Beach Boys surfing music, I've definitely talked about that with people before, of like, those boys were jamming, right?
They were jamming, yeah.
And we don't think about it just because of what the music is, but yeah. And we'll get to it when we cross this decade. But I want to shout out early, even pop punk, like the down picking of some pop punk bands is pretty fucking crazy. Yeah.
Practice that, and then you'll get Metallica down.
yeah, exactly. I remember when I was younger, I was such a I know we're getting ahead of ourselves here, but while the thoughts in my brain, we were such a little metal purist that, I didn't like pop punk. I mean, I think I secretly did, but, I remember like listening to like Sum 41 talk about how they love Maiden. I'm like, you guys, posers. Yeah. But listening to them now, I'm like, nah, these boys got riffs. Like they were riffing the whole time, and I didn't give them the respect that I should have. That's on me. Right?
Totally agree, actually, for sure.
Yeah, and I know this guy was mentioned on an earlier podcast as someone that should be listened to by guitarists and stuff. But I mean, we got to give love in this era to Jimi Hendrix. I
was just gonna say that was who I was gonna mention, actually, literally. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that guy's playing was just out of this world. Another great band for me, Creedence Clearwater Revival.
John Fogerty, really great player.
Yeah, all that, and all these boys were jamming, and it's just, man, I don't know, it's good stuff.
Yeah, Hendrix for me, everyone thinks of Hendrix and his lead playing, obviously, but they were a three-piece, so all of those riffs, everything guitar was coming from Hendrix, and he was singing on top of it, and that's really the progenitor to a lot of, I want to say three-piece bands, but I mean that as like the musicians like Sabbath or even like Pantera, those are just three guys holding it down. That can really be traced back to Hendrix and what he was doing and filling out the sound and stuff. So, yeah.
And man, when you say he was filling out the sound too, he really was. Cause he was notoriously using that thumb and like just getting, the bass, the highs, all of that of the guitar all by himself. There were no tricks back then, man. That was all him. It was all him.
So true.
Shout out to the Yardbirds. There were so many from this time.
Yeah, the Yardbirds, because they had Jimmy Page was in the Yardbirds before.
Eric Clapton, Jeff Beck.
Jeff Beck, yeah, another great player too. I love Jeff Beck.
Yeah,
phenomenal.
So it really, we're seeing the blueprints being laid out for what would come next for all these other great bands and artists and stuff.
Blue Cheer is another good one.
I actually don't know if I'm too familiar with them.
No, yeah, Blue Cheer's a really cool one too. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but like I was saying, this was the precursors of like really what was to come, right? Because then we jumped to the 70s, and I think that's where we had a real big explosion in like hard rock. Like this might be arguably where hard rock really sort of started to become a thing.
Yeah.
Like we had rock and roll, but hard rock it's almost the jump from hard rock to metal, right? Every decade they get a little harder. Bigger riffs, heavier tones. This is where we really start to see like fine definitions of like distortion to tone we might know it today. And guitar even becoming much more of a centerpiece or, the mainstay. Because even in all this stuff we talked about before, even though the performances were great, like you don't think of the Beatles like when you're giving like, oh, these shredding Beatles,
Yeah.
But we can't start the 70s without mentioning the father himself, Tony Iommi. I mean, we want to talk about riffs, rhythm playing, and all of it. I mean, I do think arguably it could be traced to that man, and we're all just doing our best to honor it at this point, you know.
I,
Right. Jimmy Page, obviously, his work with Led Zeppelin. I mean, Zeppelin had some riffs too. Whole Lot of Love. That's a fun, like, really good palm muted down picking riff. It's one that I like to teach a lot in younger kids who might not be super heavy into metal, but they like rock, and it's a good one to practice, right? Another big one for me, Richie Blackmore. You know, Rainbow.
Course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gotta mention.
Yep.
For me, some of my favorites from the 70s era is actually Michael Shankner from UFO. Kind of an underrated player, especially, it may sound weird, but especially in like American audiences. I feel like so many people in America just don't get UFO or just never listen to them. Whereas when I talk to people from like Europe or the UK, they're like, yeah, UFO, freaking classic. Everyone knows Michael Shankner, you know.
Well, I mean,
obviously,
go ahead.
No, I was going to jump to another player, but go ahead and say what you're going to say.
Oh, I was going to say, even Iron Maiden starts their shows with Doctor, right?
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I think that's one of the few covers Iron Maiden's ever done in their career was Doctor from UFO.
Yeah.
So that says all you need right there.
And then obviously another one you can't go without mentioning is obviously Eddie Van Halen. Kind of, I guess, into the 80s, but the first two albums were 70s. To me, the first album is definitely a 70s metal rock album, however you want to put it.
Yep. Yeah, we've talked a lot about Eddie here, and I've been very open how much I love him. And, you know, this is one that I've said, you know, obviously he's a great player, and he's obviously known for his leads. And as we've said many times, I mean, most people think of Eddie, they think of Eruption and things like that. But it was his rhythm playing that made me go, fuck, this guy's good. Like, obviously I knew his leads were good, but because to me, and if I've said this in the past, I apologize, everybody, but it fits the topic here. Like, even his solos feel so rhythmatic. You know?
Very tight. Very tight.
And that's another, one guitarist holding down the ship, you know?
It's true, yeah.
Yep.
And the thing that I really learned from Eddie that it applies to his lead playing, I'd say more so, but even in his rhythm playing, is he's a shapes player. It's almost everything he does it's some sort of symmetrical shape that he's doing, that he'll do in his rhythm. He'll do a riff with that shape, then he'll bring it up for like a lead fill or whatever. And like once my brain clicked where it's like, it's not just necessarily like notes or like scales or theory, but just having a shape and taking that shape and moving it around the neck, it really unlocks so much for me. Like even just in rhythm playing, you know what I mean? It's like,
yep.
It's kind of it's a lesser known thing that's touched upon, I feel. I mean, I know people have mentioned it before, but really inspirational to me for sure.
Yeah. And mentioning shapes in general with guitar is something that I think can be very beneficial and helpful. Because shapes can be easy to memorize, right? It gets so overwhelming when you talk scales and modes and, you know, all those different, I gotta remember how many, like right now I'm working, you know, on the pentatonics and stuff with one of my guitar students, and he kind of made the comment to me, he's like, man, there's so many scales I have to learn. I'm like, well, kinda, like, you know, you can, I was like, you're going to reach a point where you can kind of get a little more picky on which ones you learn. But, you know, I try to stress the importance of like memorize the shapes, man, because if you know the shapes, you don't need to know all the scales, the names, the notes, all that. It's like, I'm not saying don't if it's something you want to. I'm saying you don't need to. Like, knowing the shapes can help you work your way across it, and then you start to see the similarities, right?
Yeah. Like, I think I could be wrong, but like C major, it's a different position, but it's the same shape as D Lydian. You know, it's the same exact shape, same fingering and everything. It's just in a different spot. So you can start to connect those dots, and that's like getting into more theory stuff. That's right. You know, not everyone cares about that stuff, but it's fun to learn sometimes. You know.
Yeah, but it is helpful too, because you know when you like, you know, we'll nerd on a little theory here real quick, but just simple basic stuff like But when you learn the pentatonics, right? So I remember a big moment for me when I was younger that was like, oh, what? Like you learn your 5 shapes of the minor pentatonic. And then it's like, man, but now I got to learn the major shapes. But then it's like, well, no, you already know them. Like, but you're going to start on the second position, and that's your first position for the major. So it's like it's the same 5 shapes. It's just where you're choosing to start is different. And then you start to learn the modes. Well, one of the modes is a major scale. One of the modes is a minor scale. Boom, you know 2 of the modes already. So five more, brother. You know?
That's true.
Yeah, and so little shortcuts like that really helped. And I'm going to be full honest with you and everyone listening to this day. I still don't like properly applying fucking modes still like stresses me out to this day. Like
it's music theory is difficult, and I don't care what anyone says unless you're like naturally gifted. It's like it takes a while to figure it out. You know?
It's one of those things where it's like, all right, I get what you're telling me, but I don't get it.
Yeah, exactly. Once my hand's just like, what?
Yeah. So, and that's where I mentioned earlier where like sometimes I wish I still lived in just my ignorance of not knowing as much, because I wouldn't have cared back then. Like, you know, I remember specifically on a song when someone was learning it for a tour, and they're like, hey man, in this pre-chorus, you do this, but why wouldn't you have done this? Because that keeps it in the key. And I was like, oh, I didn't know. Like,
yeah.
But that's the thing is like, I feel like if I did know, I would have kept it in the key. Not saying it would have been worse off for it, but I wouldn't have done the thing I did, because I'd have been like, oh, nope, that goes out of key. Stay in key. You know, where are we at? Anyways, you know, another great one we got to, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say Brian May from Queen. Sorry, not to interject, but I just like, when we talk about this, it all comes to me because I'm like the 70s. Who was around the 70s? Brian May, fantastic player. Again, a lot of these players cross over into their lead work. But for me with Brian, it was just his calmness. I mean, like, just I'm really into players, and it's just me. Everyone has their own expression and how they want to present themselves as a guitar player artist. I kind of like the stoic kind of guys that'll just kind of just sit there and they got the energy. Like, Brian May is obviously a big one. Tony Iommi, just that kind of like stoic, just chill, but just ripping it up. That's the kind of vibe that I love. So I've always loved Brian's playing. He's a great.
Yeah, I was gonna bring up Queen. I mean, and here's the thing, man. Queen went pretty fucking metal sometimes. Mm-hmm. God, there's one song Queen I love. 2. What's that?
Queen 2. That's a great album. It's a heavy album.
Yep, I was just gonna bring that up. God, why the name is escaping me. I covered it with my singer Sozos. We did a cover of the song from Queen 2. I
know Ogre Battle is
Battle. That's the one.
Yeah,
I was thinking. Orc was coming in my head. I was like, no, it's not.
Yeah,
Ogre Battle. Yeah, I mean, Stone Cold Crazy, right? I mean, like
that riff, though. I mean, that riff. It's the chromatic thing. You know, dun 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 dun. Like stuff like that is so influential to like thrash. I mean, even like death metal stuff. Like it was the progenitor to so much of that. You know.
Yep. I know it's not really rhythm guitar, but I feel like I can't mention Brian May without shouting out his harmonies. Like, dude, his harmonies are just so
beautiful,
so good. And speaking of that, like another band I have to shout out if we're talking about it is Boston.
Oh God!
Yeah. Tom Schultz, for many reasons, but. Mm-hmm. The Boston debut is one of my all-time favorite albums, just in general. Like
to me, the production sound, because there's so many layering of the distorted guitar, and then there'll be the acoustic right underneath it, like in the mix, and it's so lush, it's so full, it's just I love that album.
Yep, yeah, I love all Boston albums. Maybe not love as it went on, but definitely the first 2 albums I love. And I like the third one quite a bit, but it's different, you know, but there's a decade apart of, you know, it happens. But man, that first album, I can't say enough. Like it's to me, it's a 10/10 album. I can listen to it anytime. I'm never sick of it. Brad, rest in peace, just such a good singer. Yeah, so and then of course Malcolm, AC/DC, a lot of people, everyone.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
the 70s
I,
had a lot of hitters.
so good. Oh
Yep.
God, I love the Bon Scott era of AC/DC, and like Angus really was one of the first like just firing on all cylinders kind of player, just like so off the cuff, just so raw, like nothing on his tone at all. It's just like plugged straight into the stack. I mean, I assume I don't know his whole rig or anything, but it's just so perfectly raw. It's like nothing can beat it.
It's funny as we're talking about the 70s. I don't. This topic, I'm realizing how difficult it is to fit into an hour episode because there's still so many I want to shout out, and we're only in the 70s.
If we have to go to the 80s, it's all good.
I know, but I'm just thinking of like all the prog bands that Rush.
Yeah, Rush.
Like,
yeah, Rush is a big one.
How do we? Now, I wouldn't really say it for like rhythm guitar and metal, but I can't leave the 70s and not bring up Pink Floyd, right? I mean, so I think now we're just talking about bands we love, but
yeah.
So I think the way we get through this is we'll keep it very guitar focused. That's otherwise each decade is going to be its own episode.
Yeah, for sure.
Which don't give me ideas, everybody. We'll start a new podcast.
Would be fun though.
Yeah. So let's jump to because here's the thing. I was thinking the 80s was gonna be hard because that's where for me, especially given our age and stuff, is where the big inspirations, the big hitters for people around our age. I mean, I know we still have a decade difference, but it's still close enough that the 80s was big for, obviously just based on what I've seen, what we've worked on together. Like the 80s was big for both of us.
And this doesn't apply to everybody, and I'm truthfully I'm less knowledgeable on modern metal and what and that's my fault, but I feel like if you're into heavy guitar, if you're into metal, if you're into shred, if you're into any of that stuff, it's like the 80s is, even if you're not an 80s person, it's like the 80s is where so much of it came.
And the episode before this with my buddy Nick Daggers, he actually said it beautifully. And I'm not even going to attempt to say it. So everybody, if you haven't, go listen to his episode. But he gives such a great response to my question to him, which was kind of unrelated to rhythm guitar, but it really showcased how the 80s dominated with guitar and why, and it was such a good answer. So go listen to him say it because I can't say it nearly as good as he did. That being said, let's jump into the 80s. And I think the two bands to really start, if we're talking guitar and metal, is Maiden and Priest.
For sure.
Iron Maiden and Judas Priest for those who might not know who they are. But if you don't know who they are, you might be at the wrong podcast.
No kidding.
Yep. I mean, these two powerhouses, these two bands for me, like Sabbath definitely started metal. But to me, Maiden and Priest, like, took the charge, especially for the melodic, the speed, the soaring dual fucking lead players and stuff like that. We talked about again like the one man holding it down, and we had that in Tony, we had that in Brian May, but I feel like these two bands really made it hot to have two guitar players together, feeding off each other, working together, dual leads and all that. And what blows my mind with Priest is, I mean, Priest has always been great. Priest has always been good, but it was the later Priest. I mean, very old for us now, but I mean, Priest was riffing for sure, but I mean, it was the Painkiller album from the 90s. To me, it's so interesting because it's like, damn, this is the same band that like wrote Breaking the Law and Living After Midnight, and now they're just playing these crazy riffs, these insane solos. Like, it's always interesting to me because it's like, were they able to do this back during the British Steel album, and they just didn't? Because it's such a jump in technicality,
And I read Rob Halford's book, which was awesome. For me, I mean, just everything that he went through in the 80s, and obviously like being a gay man and stuff like that. It was just a super insightful read. But aside from the personal stuff, learning about the music side was really cool. And for me, Painkiller is interesting because it almost seems like they were trying to do something with that they felt was modern. You know, they were trying to push themselves to like really be on the cusp of like, you know, they saw Metallica, the Megadeths, obviously Pantera toured with them on the Painkiller tour. So there's a lot of things happening, and I feel like they saw that and they were like, we don't want to be left behind. We don't want to be like a corny early 80s breaking the law band. You know, we want to be a metal band that's a contemporary metal band. And this is all 40 years ago at this point, but
Well,
it was.
it's not only did they do it, they wrote one of the greatest metal albums of all time in doing so. So good on them, because you've seen it go the opposite way many times where bands try to modernize themselves. Looking at you, Saint Anger, and it doesn't go well. So, like, I will be the first to admit, like, I respect and I do love Priest, but they're not usually one of my favorites when I talk about favorite bands. However, Painkiller is one of my all-time favorite metal albums.
When I balance Maiden and Priest, Maiden is always going to be freaking here, you know.
Yeah.
Priest, it's kind of winding back, but I really love the 70s Priest albums too, like Sad Wings of Destiny, Hellbent for Leather, like more raw, not as like shreddy, but just fun stuff. I do want to touch upon something because I guess you said part of what we want to do is offer some educational things here. And one of the things that Maiden really taught me is with the two guitars, and this applies to rhythm, is having one person do the open chords and the other person do the power chords. Like I think the chorus of Power Slave is a great example, where it's like Dave is hitting the open E, and then Adrian is hitting the E on the, you know, the 7th fret there. So like stuff like that, it clicked in my brain. It's like, oh my god, that's the same freaking chord, just in a different position. And Maiden like really opened the doors for that for me.
Yeah, and it's subtle, but it gives you this big sound, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because even if you're playing the same notes, the string tension, the thickness of the strings does add different variables to it. Or maybe sometimes Dave will be doing like an open chord, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, or something that Adrian did in the later years is he, you know, when he went off to do like Bruce solo albums, you know, he like fell in love with drop D tuning. So when he came back, and now there's 3 of them, if you watch Adrian, he'll be playing classic Maiden songs like Wrathchild in drop D. So,
really?
Yeah.
Whoa.
So watch.
That's
I'm pretty
cool.
sure he does it on Rock in Rio, but watch Adrian in like later stuff when it's the 3 of them.
Mm-hmm.
I know for sure Wrathchild, but I'm pretty sure he does it on most that he can get away with. He plays in drop D, so he's adding. So it's the same notes, but he's able to go lower now, and so he's adding this lower beefiness to the Maiden stuff, while Yannick and Dave are holding down the original sort of progressions, which I always thought was really cool. So it's adding a little modernness to Maiden, kind of in their way.
In their way, yeah. That's freaking.
And I remember I forgot about it because I watched a video with Adrian, and him talking about this, and you know, his discovery of drop D and how he started to incorporate it when he came back into Maiden. And I remember I forgot, and I'm watching a video and I'm like, what the hell is he doing? Because he was clearly playing like drop D style power chords, and that's when I remember like, oh, it's like, oh yeah, this dude plays in drop tuning now. And it's really cool. And you know, speaking of rhythm players, there's no denying everyone in Maiden is amazing. Every guitarist in Maiden is amazing. But I really have grown to respect Adrian as a strong rhythm player. I'm not taking it away from Dave, but when I think of the two, like if we look at the two of them as is, and you know, especially during like I don't want to say the glory years, because to me Maiden has stayed glorious, but you know, before Yannick came into the picture, and that run of the hit of Number of the Beast through to like Seventh Son, right? You really kind of notice the strengths of the two of them, and Adrian, I feel, really held the strength of the rhythm guy. Again, even in his leads, they felt really rhythmatic, where Dave had this smooth bluesiness. Yeah, exactly.
To me, Adrian's right hand is more aggressive. And this is just what I've noticed from analyzing their techniques. Dave really does have that loose, beautiful, utterly beautiful technique, but Adrian just has a little bit more of like a muscle in his playing, I find.
Couple just like shout outs of great players, right? I mean, you had the hair metal boys, you know. Hair metal is definitely known for the shreds, right? But you know, Crew,
Mick
Def
Mars
Leppard,
is a
Poison.
great player.
What's that?
Mick Mars from Motley Crue.
Oh yeah, I just mentioned Crew. Yeah,
Great.
great players. I mean, Andy the Rock from King Diamond. I could talk about that guy forever. The riffs he writes. I mean, there's too many, right? But I think to just speed it along, we're going to talk about two specific boys, and then you guys will fight amongst yourselves in the comments. I'm kidding, but let's talk about some thrash. I mean, we got right Megadeth, Anthrax, Testament, Exodus, so many, but obviously, you know, it goes without saying, Dave Mustaine and James Hetfield, you know, two massive powerhouses from that time. And I know James gets the love as like the father of the down picks and the father of the tight rhythm playing, which deservingly so. But man, Dave could play. Dave's got fucking riffs, and
It's Dave. It's Dave all day. Like obviously, as a shredder, as a lead player, it's Dave. Even though his leads aren't like Marty's or like they're not the best or anything, but I still think Dave is a great lead player. But for me, rhythm wise, the difference for me is I have a really hard time with the aggressive down picking stuff. It's just me. It's my weakness is my right hand. It's always been. So Dave's playing with a lot more of the alternate picking, a lot more of the upstrokes, a lot more of that like scrapey kind of pick sound that Dave has with his riffs. That to me has always been my favorite sort of thing. Nothing against James, obviously, but this just technique wise, that is what resonated with me.
And you know what I really appreciate, and I don't think gets mentioned nearly enough, because it's always a battle between the two when people start talking about them, and you know the argument of you know Metallica or Megadeth. But the thing is their styles couldn't be more different. Exactly. And I think that needs to be discussed more. Like, yeah, the reason older Metallica sounds like Megadeth is because Dave had a hand in writing a lot of that stuff. Not all of it, everybody, like you like to claim, but a big enough chunk that his influence is definitely heard there. However, it becomes very clear when they started writing without him. Puppets, Justice, how different the playing styles were. And I think that's something to like celebrate, because when you again, it's almost a Adrian and Dave Murray comparison with a James Hetfield and Dave Mustaine comparison, because Dave has a lot more of these, I don't want to say loose riffs, but a lot more with the fret hand than the pick hand, right? Where James is dominating with that pick hand, not much going on with the right hand, and it's just two completely different styles, which are both fantastic and both complicated in their own way. You mentioned, right, that you know your strength isn't necessarily in your right hand. Well, to be honest, I feel far more confident playing older Metallica than like older, like, dude, the Rust in Peace album stresses me out, like trying to learn that shit.
Yeah,
you know. The Master of Puppets album does not. The only thing about the Puppets album that makes it difficult is the endurance. But I dare say there's not, and again, this comes with years of playing, but there's not what I would call a complicated riff on Puppets. It's just what makes it complicated, and I guess I'm, you know, contradicting myself here, but is the endurance. The endurance is the hard part. But
I agree.
My fingers don't get tripped up, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, because a lot of it is power chord based. It's just the timing and the down picking and the endurance of it. It just, and to me, it kicks my butt. And as a player, as someone who understands the physicality of the instrument and a shredder, it's definitely just about practice. It's like working out, you know, it's just something you got to get better at. It's just, as a player, recognizing my weaknesses. If I try to play like Creeping Death live, like 200 BPM or whatever, it's like there's no way. Like I can't do that, you know.
Yeah, even Puppets is like really fast, but what makes that one hard is almost 9 fucking minutes, man. Like, yeah, you get that middle section as a break, but other than that, there's just no mercy for your
So
picking hand. But then I think of like you look Lucretia or something from Rust in Peace, and that shit like just fucks my fingers, man. Like my brain's like, wait, what? Yeah. So like I could sight read puppets all day, but like Rust in Peace. Also too, like I've spent more time with it, so I think the lesson here is like you get what you put in, kind of thing. So honorable mentions that again we just don't have enough time, but we've already said a few, but Gary Holt, I think does not get enough praise. The Boys in Creator, the Boys in Testament, Scott Ian and Anthrax and those guys. Like Anthrax is another one that's like there's nothing really screams complicated to me when I think Anthrax riffs, but man, those boys still could lock it down with their rhythm. And we're really, I know we're focusing a lot on the thrash and stuff. Again, sorry guys, I didn't realize how much there is to say on this topic through each year. There's just so many great players and great bands that have happened. And there's because like now I want to talk about like bands like Rat. I mean,
yeah, no, and I'm even thinking of like doom metal, like Saint Vitus and like Possessed, where it's like it's not about the speed, but it's just about the tone and just the feel. It's just like so good.
And that is such another important thing about rhythm, where that it's not always about the speed. It's not fast and tight isn't all that rhythm is made up of. In fact, sometimes going slower is more difficult. Because then you're really thinking about the spaces between the notes, between the chords, and doom metal's a great one for that. Now, I don't listen to a lot of doom, so that's a little, I wouldn't be the expertise on that, but I recognize again what it has to offer. And so, yeah, I don't know, everybody. There's so many. I think the lesson here is just go listen to it all, right? Find something from each of them that you can learn from and pull from. And it'll be fantastic. All right, everybody. So here's the deal. There is just so much to talk about, so many great guitarists and so much music that we have decided this is going to be part 1 of part 2. So if you are enjoying us kind of going through the decades together and talking about these artists, what we love, what inspired us, there will be a part 2 coming because there are still a lot of decades to get through. So let us know in the comments as we reach the other decades of maybe some artists and guitarists you want us to shout out during the next episode, and we'll make sure to talk about them. So let us know in the comments, everybody. But of course, before we get out of here, we got to do our rapid fire and our shout outs. So right now, we're just going to ask you some random quick questions and just answer with whatever feels right. Cool? Okay, so pretty simple. I usually ask the same ones. Sometimes I make them up on the spot. It all depends, but we'll see. So one thing I always like to ask is, who is one of your favorite rhythm guitar players, or someone that you really look up to as a rhythm player?
Ooh, I mean, honestly, it's a player that is kind of like, it's not metal, but it's Andy Summers from The Police, who arguably, in most Police songs, there's not really like lead work going on, but it's the textures, it's the chords, it's the holding it down in the 3-piece. All of that, taking that and applying it to metal, just massively influential player to me. So,
oh yeah, that's one we haven't heard yet. So I love that. That's why I love asking this question. Okay, most underrated guitarist.
Oh my gosh, that's a very, very difficult question. Most underrated guitarist. Well, for me, I'd have to say Alex Lifeson from Rush. Not that he doesn't get his praises or his celebrations, but to me, top 5 player. I mean, he should be up there with the best of the best. And maybe it's because he's in a band with Neil Peart and Geddy Lee, that kind of gets overshadowed. But I mean, to me, like a top 3 player. I love him, love his evolution, love his rhythm playing, his lead work, all the way from the 70s, which is like heavy rock riffs, to the 80s, which is like this new wave chord shit, all of it. I think Lifeson is super underrated.
Cool. Yeah, and like you said, maybe overshadowed, but you got to be that good to be in a band with those two. Oh, yeah, so it makes sense. One album you think everyone should listen to?
Ooh. Well, obviously, I would say Rust in Peace, but who hasn't listened to Rust in Peace? So, my second answer is actually Images and Words by Dream Theater.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit of an off one, but to me, that is a perfect album. Perfect album if you're into guitar playing. Some great rhythm stuff, super, super tight, but just a journey, just beautiful.
Nice. Okay. And was there, if you can recall, was there a specific riff or song when you were younger? What was the song where you were like, I want to do that? Like, what song made you really want to take guitar seriously?
It's actually like totally random. It is metal, but it's Slayer, Mandatory Suicide, but specifically the Big Four version, the live in like Sofia, Bulgaria or whatever. Because I had started playing guitar by that point. I had like learned riffs and played with like bands and stuff. But when I was over at my friend's and he put that on, and when I saw the opening and Slayer coming out in Mandatory Suicide, I was like, that's it. That's exactly what I want to do. And then it was over. Then I was into like Death and Pantera, and just it was all over from there. So
Awesome. All right. Very cool. And last question. I always like to end with this. What advice, words of wisdom, what have you, would you give to aspiring young guitarists?
ooh, that is another good one. It's been said before, but I would just say just keep playing. Just play. Play for the love of playing. Don't play feeling like you have to achieve something or you have to impress something or you have to do it for anybody or anything else other than yourself and the joy of playing guitar. Just play it. Just have fun. I mean, even last night or yesterday, kind of having a bad day. You know, some personal things going on. Work was a little rough. But I got home and I just played for myself, didn't record it, didn't write, didn't do anything, and instantly felt better. It's very cathartic. So that's what I would recommend. Just play.
Awesome. Very cool. Great. Okay. Thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun. I had a great time just chatting about all these bands with you and stuff. It was great. I can't wait for part 2. Happy Accident for sure. We'll get that going, everybody, as soon as we can. Remember, leave a comment of who you want us to talk about when we get to those decades or who you think deserves to be talked about. But before we get you out of here, let everybody know where they can find you, anything else you might want them to know about yourself that we didn't touch on in the beginning. And yeah, just thank you again.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Super, super fun. I've had a great time doing this. But for anyone interested, again, it's Sulevia Music, Sulevia Music. That's literally everywhere. TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Bandcamp, it's Sulevia Music. So you'll find me there. Lots more content coming. Definitely working on some new material. Hopefully I'll have some stuff out this year, 2026. But yeah, if you're into old school heavy metal, shred stuff, Ibanez, definitely feel free to follow me, and yeah, we'll have a good time.
Awesome. Go follow everybody. Go listen to the album. I've heard it. It's great. So thank you, everybody. And real quick before we get out of here, if you enjoyed this, please like, comment, share, tell your friends about the podcast. And if you're looking for a community of like-minded guitarists and people just helping each other out, lifting each other up, please consider joining our Discord, the Rhythm Dominion. We're looking to get that thing going, get it built. The idea is to bring guitarists around all ages, all levels. Just a great place where we can help each other out. So I hope to see you in there, and I hope to see you on the next one. All right, everybody.